Welcome to episode 7 of the Keel Box aluminium 36-foot sailboat boat build. In this episode I am going to look at stage number 11, which is the Rudder shoes. So the cost of building those and how I went about doing it. I'm also going to look into a little bit of work on the keel box because there's still things left to do. So let's take a look. First things first, a big thank you to Aaron once again for supporting the build by donating yet more lead, which is very much needed. I'm still after roughly 1.7 tons of lead. So once again, big thank you, Aaron, for all of this lead. It's, I would say, easily 10-12 kilos. So thank you. Another shout out goes to Albert Funk for always taking the time to give me great ideas as I'm going along on my build. This time, Albert, thank you for recommending this product, Teff Gel, which is a little bit kinder than some of the other stuff that goes very hard when it sets. So this is more of a soft gel that can be used as a membrane between two different metals to make sure there's no corrosion. And if I understand it right, you need to make sure you reapply this every other year. So it's something that you want to keep your eye on once you put it on. But it's apparently, from what I read up, it works really well. So thank you very much, Albert. And as soon as the sun comes out, I'm going to take this off. And I'm going to apply some to the bolts, as well as a little bit of silicone-based spray on the actual rubber seal to make sure that that is keeping itself lubricated as well. Before I start looking at the keel box again, I am going to do some work on the sand casting box that I'm putting together. If you haven't seen previous episodes, then I had a failed attempt of doing some lead casting when I did it in a mold made out of plaster. So I'm changing tactics and I'm going to use casting sand instead, something I probably should have done from the beginning, but here we go. So part of the build is a steel box, and this morning I'm just going to make sure I'll put some M8 threads in some of the parts. So for that I just have a normal kind of M8 taps, a little tool to be able to use them. This is just to make sure that I'm somewhat straight. I have a normal drill, which I'm going to just countersunk the holes before I start. It just makes it a little bit easier to grip the taps. And a little bit of WD-40 just to make sure that I get a little bit of grease, because you shouldn't go in without any form of grease. You need something. So let's do it. I completely forgot that we made this tap guide in the last episode, so I started off without it, and I started off wonky, so hopefully I can rescue that thread because I didn't go in too deep. But with this tap guide, it's so much easier. So let's use that. my faithful companion black. Hey, man. I have WD-40 in my hand, so I don't really want to put it on his fur. You leave those rabbits and bunnies alone, okay? So that was the first 8 holes that I've now thread. I have another 12 to go, but that will have to happen on my lunch hour. Welcome to the life of a part-time boat builder. Time to do some 9 to 5 work. Houston, we got a problem. I snapped one of the taps, and the reason I snapped it was they come in 3 different stages. One that you start off with, and then they get coarser and coarser. And I tried to take a shortcut and use the last tap straight away, and this was the result. So I should have stuck with the first tap and done it properly, but you know, you live and learn. So I now need to get that out. Okay, I managed to get the broken tap out and managed to put another tap through it, and I think the thread is good enough to use, so all good. Worst case scenario, I'll weld it over and make a new hole. So I have finally connected my welder. I'm gonna give that a go. If you're an electrician, then please look away. Just put 2 plugs on here for the welder itself, and I've put a little trip switch in here. So the cable is cooker cable, which is good for 45 amp. This trip switch is good for 40 amp, so hopefully that should go before the cable goes. That then keeps on going to a reel of 15 meters, and that will then plug into a point under the domestic cooker or oven, which is a 45 amp cable as well. So that should, if I done my maths correctly, be enough for me to be doing some welding. Top lid done. Now just need to do the bottom lid. So these are the 2 inside pieces that I can make sure that I don't need to use too much sand, casting sand on the smaller parts. And we have a new sand lead casting box, and the idea is to attach the mold piece I am going to cast underneath here, screw it in place so it sits flush against the top here, turn it upside down, remove the lid, pack it with casting sand, put the lid back on, turn it back up around again, gently lift this lid up, and then remove the mold piece, put the lid back on, and what should be left under here is the shape of the lead ingots that I need to cast. So then I can then put the copper pipe down here and pipe the lead in until it hits the top. That is if this is level, and I should in theory have a nice piece of lead that looks as I want it to look. These two pieces here are just some slides that goes in here and here, so that I don't need to use so much sand when I am casting the smaller parts. So they're just kind of separating parts. So in theory, hopefully that should work. I probably need to put a couple of handles on each side of this one, because it's going to be quite heavy to turn around once the sand is in it. So that's probably my next step. What a beautiful morning. So this is the lip. No, it's not the lip. This is the lid of the keel box. Unfortunately, after the final construction, some of these little holes don't line up with the flange or the lip on the actual keel box. So I'm going to flip the keel box and line up as many holes as I can, and then mark out the holes that don't line up, and then I'm going to weld them over, sand them, and drill new holes to make sure that I have a perfect fit, because there will be a rubber seal between the lip and the lid, and I want that to be tight and properly fixed. So this is what I need to flip out upside down so I can get to the flange, to the lip itself. As you can see, there's still frost and pretty cold here in the UK. It's getting closer and closer for me to having to get an indoor place where I can use a gantry, because these pieces start to weigh a little bit too much for my old body. So food for thought. So this is the lid lip I was talking about. It's been properly welded completely underneath all the way around, which probably would have been strong enough. But I've also made sure there's some extra tacks here, and in the previous video you could see the chafing of these pieces. So I'm gonna sand this flat so that when a rubber seal goes on, there is no room for leakage. That is something I will do once my neighbors have woken up, so probably around lunchtime, because it's gonna make a lot of noise. So for now, I'm just going to align the lid itself and see what holes are out of line, so that I can mark those. This is the opening and the cap that holds down a steel rod, stainless steel rod that holds the keel in place once it's in its downward position. So I thought I might as well fit this while I'm aligning the lids to make sure that that line up as well. So there's no need to tighten it up, but it seems to be fitting nicely. I need to look at the drawings again. I'm 99.9% sure that it's aluminium plate, and that this one is on the top. And then comes a plastic layer, the other end, and then comes the stainless steel, and then there's some 2 plastic bushes in here as well to make sure that the stainless steel bolts don't touch the aluminium. So the lids are so far out of line, or the holes, that I need to get some CAD measurements to see where it is out of alignment. Is it the lids that have been printed incorrectly? Was the measurements maybe incorrect from the start? Or is it the keel box that has been warped in the welding? Because it's a lot of heat and it's aluminium, so it will distort. The question is, should it have distorted this much, and what is the best way forward? So I'm gonna get those measurements and I'm gonna pause this. So this is the first dry spell I've had in a long time. So I've kept the paraglide in the van where it's been a bit of moisture. So I just need to get that out and get it to dry off a bit while I can. I always felt that paragliding goes very much hand in hand with sailing, obviously, both powered by wind. But I meet a lot of people interested in sailing that also do paragliding, so there's definitely a correlation there. After doing some measuring and checks, it seems to be this part of the keel box wall that is warped. You can clearly see the gap in the middle there. So that makes the holes be out of line. So I think I have a couple of options here. One is going to be to forcefully bend it back into shape. The other one would be to weld these holes and re-drill them in a position, because I don't think that little warp will have an impact on the boat itself. Or I can get new lids to the keel box and without holes, and then just drill them from scratch. So food for thought. Any ideas? Welcome. Time to do some sanding of all these welds so that I get a flat surface to put the lid on. So the rest of the sanding I will do with a flat sanding block, as I've taken the worst off now, and I can use a kind of a flat tool just to make sure that I'm left with a flat surface when I'm sanding by hand. And I've also opened up these 2 points here, so when the mast support leads up to here, it should slot in quite nicely here before it's welded into place. Rudder shoes, stage 11 in the cost breakdown. This is the part that supports and holds in place the rudder stocks. So the opposite side is bolted to the rudder skegs to make rudder and skeg become one unit. I got some video of individual parts before I welded them together. So these are the rudder shoes after assembly and weld, and I am super happy because they look really strong, so don't think I'll have any problems with these. As you can see, there's an extra plate underneath to kind of strengthen it up a bit, and you have the Delrin bush inserted as well. So these bolts are not protected with a plastic sleeve, so you could have a smaller bolt and a plastic sleeve and it will still be strong enough. So this is the part that is screwed onto the skeg itself, and this is where the actual rudder stock goes in so that it can swivel freely, and that then builds up the actual complete rudder. So yeah, happy with that. So that is stage 11. So, cost breakdown for stage 11 rudder shoes as follow. The material alone came to 151.80 pounds, which is roughly 178.20 US dollars. Of that, welding came to 125 pounds, which is roughly 149.84 dollars, and I had the welding done externally, so that's a cost that I could have saved if I would have done it myself at that stage. The laser cutting came to 1663 Great British pounds, which is roughly 1992 US dollars, and the lathing and machining of the round parts came to 80 pounds, which is roughly 96.35 US dollars. So all in all, it came to a total of 373.43 pounds, which is roughly 444.31 US dollars. So, conclusion for stage 11, the rudder shoes, that came in at £373.43, which is roughly $405.52. The part and material stood for 44.20%, and the external labor stood for 55.80%. So once again, I paid more for the external labor than I did for the parts and the material. On a side note, the lathed rudder shoe was so large, so I doubt that you would have a lathe of that size yourself. Another lesson learned was that the aluminium cup that was precision lathed to make sure that the Delrin bush would fit snug got distorted once it was welded to the bottom plate, so that the Delrin plastic cup didn't fit properly. It was probably only a couple of tenths of millimeters, but it was enough for the bush not to fit properly. So I had to correct that afterwards. I'm not sure what the solution there would be. Maybe to have a steel rod inside that makes sure that the aluminium can't distort when you weld it, or maybe it's just that unfortunate thing that when you weld aluminium it will actually distort if it gets too hot. Stage 1 to 11 total has now reached 6,666.40 pence in Great British pounds, which is roughly 7,819.90 in US dollars. So far, between stage 1 and 11, the build plans and material accounts for 41%. The rest of the cost, CNC cut files, external labor and services and tools, is the remaining percentage. So once again, If you have the tools and the skills before you start to build, you will save yourself some money. I will leave a link to the Google Doc and the Modular Hippo cost breakdown in the description below for anyone interested in looking closer at that. Thank you for watching episode 7. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps me to push the content and to move the channel forward. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will respond within 24 hours. And if you haven't seen the other episodes, then you'll find them up here somewhere. Until next time, take care.